You're unique in that you are a ESG analyst. You're somebody who looks at these issues and wants to help solve them. But you also are a massive proponent of Bitcoin mining. Let's maybe just start with, how do those two worlds intersect, and why do you believe that Bitcoin mining can actually help to reduce methane and address some of these ESG concerns?
Well, thanks, Bob. Great to be here. I was a climate tech investor, or have been a climate tech investor for around 4 years now, so run two different funds. And there came a point when we asked ourselves the question, are we doing enough through our funds? And the answer was no. We realized that we were only looking at carbon dioxide emissions. That's not our only emission, number one. Number two, we were funding ventures that were high risk, of course, so some of the technology might never see the light of day. And the other issue was that even if they did see the light of day, it was going to take until well after 2030 before they achieved scale. So we started to ask ourselves the question, what can we do that's mitigating not only carbon dioxide but methane, which the United Nations is telling us is now our number one lever to slow down climate change. Number two, what can we do that's actually low risk? So it's using technology that exists today to find climate solutions. And number three, it's going to be very fast acting. So it's something that can happen before 2030 and using existing technology and mitigating methane. We did a lot of research, and long story short, we came to the surprising conclusion that using Bitcoin mobile mining units on landfills was going to make a whole stack of difference to mitigating our methane emissions.
So when you think about mitigating, that I think is something people say, that sounds good, right? I think that we should mitigate the methane emissions and let's go do that. But you all also think that Bitcoin potentially become negative emissions, which is this really unique idea. Describe how we get from something where people are concerned about Bitcoin mining and they think it's bad for the environment to potentially being one of the only industries in the world that could claim negative emissions.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So the first thing to understand is why methane and how that can make a contribution substantially. So for a long time now, organizations like the Environmental Defense Fund, the EPA has said that the best way to reduce landfill emissions is by basically doing some sort of power generation with them. So rather than what happens at the moment is methane is 84 times more warming to the earth over a 20-year period than carbon dioxide. So that's why the United Nations has said it's our strongest lever to reduce climate change over the next 20 years. So the problem is, and just to give a context for landfills, so there's three big providers of methane to the atmosphere that come from human sources. So there's agriculture, oil and gas industry, and landfills. And until recently, we've thought that landfills was our number three issue. Well, that was until last year when the NASA Jet Propulsion Unit from Pasadena gave us the results of 6 years of satellite footage, and they showed that our landfill emissions were underestimated by a factor of 2.27. So what that means is landfills is actually our number two source of methane emissions. And then if you factor in that the World Bank has said that they're increasing at a rate of around 1.4% per year, that's faster than agriculture. They're actually going to overtake agriculture and be our main methane source by 2032.
What is happening inside of these landfills, right? In terms of what is driving it? Are we just taking trash and we're throwing it in there and nature's kind of taking over? Or is there some process that we're running? What's happening?
So what's happening is, so when organic waste decays, it can decay in two ways. If it decays in the presence of air, then it produces carbon dioxide. But if it decays without the presence of air, so in a landfill, when it gets very compacted, there's no air available, then it decays anaerobically, which basically just means without air, and that produces methane. And that's particularly bad, remember, because methane's 84 times as warming. So what's happening in these landfills is you get huge amounts of inorganic and organic waste piling together, getting compressed. There's no oxygen available. You get massive builds up of methane, and that methane, for the most part at the moment around the world, is simply getting vented into our atmosphere, and it's causing climate havoc.